Welcome to QuickPro's menu by menu guide for the Olympus OMD EM10. This guide is meant to be a study tool to be used in connection with and not a replacement of your camera's owner's manual. The OMD EM10 is a great camera that will capture amazing images as well as HD video. Let's get started. Your OMD EM10 has many sophisticated buttons and dials, and to take the best pictures with your camera, you want to be familiar with the functions of each of them. Let's begin by taking a closer look at many of the camera's features. Let's first take a look at the top of the camera. First, there is the mode dial. To select a shooting mode, simply rotate the mode dial. This is the stereo microphone, which is used for recording sound in movie mode. This is the internal flash. To pop up the flash, press the flash switch. This is the hot shoe, which will allow you to attach an optional external flash to the camera. These are the front and rear dials, which are used to control many camera functions and settings in the shooting modes. This is the shutter button. To take a picture, simply press the shutter button halfway to allow the camera to focus, and press it the rest of the way to take the picture. This is the movie image selection button. In the camera's shooting modes, pressing this button will begin movie recording. In the playback mode, pressing this button will allow you to quickly and easily select multiple images for sharing, protection, or deletion. This is the Function 2 button, which is used as the multi-function button by default. As the multi-function button, it can be customized with one of 4 different functions. To choose a function, press and hold the button while rotating either the front or rear dial. You can choose from highlight and shadow control, color creator, ISO white balance options, magnify zoom frame, and image aspect. Once you've selected a function, simply press the Function 2 button and then rotate either the front or rear dial to make adjustments. You can customize the Function 2 button with one of almost 25 different options in the custom menu. Now let's take a look at this side of the camera. This is the connector cover, which will allow you to connect the camera to a variety of other devices, including an HD TV or a computer, compatible printer, or a standard definition TV. This is the Live View button, which allows you to toggle between viewfinder shooting and live view. On this side of the camera, we'll find the Lens Release button. To attach a lens, make sure that the camera is switched to off, hold the camera with one hand and the lens with the other like this. Align the lens's red attachment mark with the camera's red attachment mark, then gently rotate the lens until it clicks into place. When you want to detach a lens, press the Lens Release button while holding the camera with the same hand, and then with the other hand, rotate the lens until it uncouples. Now let's take a look at the bottom of the camera. Here we'll find the battery and memory card slot cover. When you're inserting a memory card, you'll want to make sure that the manufacturer's logo is facing the front of the camera. Simply insert the card until it clicks into place. Then close and lock the card slot cover. Before you start taking pictures with a new memory card, it's a good idea to format it. Also, keep in mind that your camera will operate faster if you periodically format your memory card rather than simply deleting images from it to free up space for more picture taking. Make sure that you don't format your card unless you have already copied the images that you want to save to your computer. Formatting your card will erase all the images. To format the memory card, press the Menu button. Next, use the arrow pad to select Card Setup from Shooting Menu 1. Here, select Format, Yes, and press OK. Now let's take a look at the back of the camera. The most prominent feature is the tilting 3-inch LCD touchscreen monitor. This sophisticated monitor can be controlled using the camera's buttons and dials And many of the functions can also be controlled using the touch screen. In this guide, we'll discuss using the controls primarily with the buttons and dials. This monitor serves several purposes. First, it provides a real-time live view of the scene. Second, when the playback button is pressed, it displays images that have been taken. Using the camera's arrow pad, you can scroll through the images on the memory card. You can also simply swipe the touch screen to scroll through images. Third, this monitor provides access to the camera's Super Control Panel. To access the settings on the Super Control Panel, press the Live View button and then press the OK button to access the settings. Fourth, this monitor provides access to the camera's live control. To access live control when you're shooting in live view, simply press the OK button. You can use the touch screen, arrow pad, or rear dial to navigate to different options in live control. To make adjustments to a setting, you can rotate the front dial, or you can use the arrow pad. Finally, when the menu button is pressed, the LCD monitor displays the camera's menu system, where you can access many important settings in the camera. Directly above the LCD monitor is the sophisticated electronic viewfinder, where you can see camera settings when you're taking pictures. To the right side of the viewfinder, there is the eye sensor, which will automatically switch the display to the viewfinder when the camera is brought close to the eye. This is the Function 1 button, which serves as the AE lock button by default. Pressing this button in several of the camera's shooting modes will lock the exposure while you recompose the image. This is the Playback button, which will allow you to view images and movies on the memory card. This is the Menu button, which provides access to the camera's menu system. This is the Info button. In the shooting modes and in the playback mode, pressing this button will display important information about the scene or image. Each time the button is pressed, a different set of information will be displayed. As discussed, this is the arrow pad, which has several functions. It is used for navigating the menu system, scrolling through images in playback, selecting an AF point, and accessing information in the Super Control Panel. This is the OK button, which is used to access the live control as well as make selections in the menu system and Super Control Panel. This is the Erase button, which will allow you to remove images from the memory card. And this is the On-Off lever. Now let's take a moment to discuss the way the OMD EM10's sophisticated menu system functions. There are 5 different menus, each with a variety of menu items and submenus. To access the menu system, simply press the Menu button. Here you can use the arrow pad to select a menu item and press the OK button to view the options for that item. The first menu is the Shooting Menu 1, which contains the camera's preliminary and basic shooting options. The next menu is Shooting Menu 2, which is where the camera's advanced shooting options are located. Next, there is the Playback menu, where you can access the camera's playback and retouch options. The next menu is the Custom menu, with a variety of submenus, where you can customize many of the camera settings for your shooting style. The last menu is the Setup menu, where you can access and adjust many of the camera's basic setup options like date, time, and language. Note that while you're navigating the menu system, you can press the Info button to turn off the pop-up info boxes. Let's first take a look at the Shooting Menu 1. The first item in this shooting menu is Card Setup with 2 options, All Erase and Format. Most of the time, you'll probably want to use the Format option. Memory cards must be formatted before their first use and after they've been used in different cameras or computers. When the Format option is used, all images, including protected images, will be removed from the memory card. The other option, All Erase, is good for times that you have protected images on the memory card that you do not want to be erased. When the images are erased, the protected images will remain on the memory card. The next menu item in the shooting menu 1 is Reset My Set, where you can reset the shooting settings to factory default, or you can save the current shooting settings as a custom set that can be easily recalled for future use. To reset the camera's shooting settings, select Reset and use the arrow pad to choose whether you'd like to do a basic or full reset. The basic option will only reset the camera's basic shooting settings, and the full option will reset almost all of the camera's settings. Make your selection and press OK. Now press OK again, select Yes, and press OK. The other option in this menu item is My Set, which will allow you to save banks of camera settings to a single, easy-to-recall set. There are 4 different My Sets on the OMD EM10. And each can be customized with a different set of camera settings. My Sets are especially useful and time-saving when you find yourself shooting in the same location, like a studio, on a regular basis. Let's discuss how to set a bank of settings to a My Set. First, you'll need to adjust any camera settings that you would like to be registered. You can set the aperture, shutter speed, ISO, white balance, and almost any other shooting setting. You can also register specific menu items to the My Set. After you have made your selections, select one of the My Set options under Reset My Set in the shooting menu 1. Here, press the right arrow button and select Set. To recall the settings when you're out shooting, select the My Set option where you registered your settings, highlight Yes, and press OK. The shooting and menu settings you previously registered will be instantly applied. The next option in the Shooting 1 menu is Picture Mode, which will allow you to select a picture mode as well as make adjustments to contrast, color tone, and sharpness. Picture modes are an intuitive way for you to tell the camera what levels of contrast, sharpness, and other parameters you'd like for your specific shooting scenario. The camera has 6 different preset picture modes, as well as 1 custom picture mode. To access and adjust picture modes while you're shooting, press the OK button to display the live control and navigate to the Picture Mode option. Here you can use the left and right arrow buttons to make your selection. First, there is the Eye Enhance picture mode. This is a great general use picture style. The camera will automatically adjust color tone to fit the scene you're photographing with impressive results. Images taken with this picture mode will appear sharp, vivid, and crisp. The Vivid picture mode is great for images with primary colors that you'd like emphasized. The Natural picture mode will capture images with natural colors, sharpness, and saturation. The Muted picture mode produces flat tones. This is a good mode to choose if you're planning to edit your photos on your computer. The Portrait picture mode is great for photographing people and faces. It offers beautiful skin tones. The Monotone picture mode will capture images with smooth black and white gradation. Images taken in this setting cannot be converted to color later. With the Custom picture mode, you can select one of 6 preset modes and customize it to your liking. Also note that each of the 6 preset modes are customizable as well. We'll discuss customizing picture modes in a moment. In addition to the picture modes, there is also an e-portrait mode. With e-portrait, images of people will have smooth skin textures. Next, there is the Color Creator, which will produce colors using the Color Creator. To use the color creator, press and hold the Function 2 button and rotate the front or rear dial until Color Creator is selected. Then you can simply press the Function 2 button and rotate the front and rear dials to make adjustments. The OMD EM10 also has a variety of art filters that will allow you to apply creative effects to your images. First, there is Pop Art, which will create a vivid look with emphasized colors. Next, there is Soft Focus, which will give your photo the look of soft lighting. Next, there is Pale and Light Color, which will give your image an aged, faded look. Next, there is Light Tone, which will lighten the overall image. Next, there is Grainy Film, which will mimic the look of old film with high contrast black and white tones. Next, there is Pinhole, which will give the image shaded corners and pronounced colors. Next, there is Diorama, which will emphasize the subject and blur the other areas of the image. Next, there is Cross Process, which will give the image accentuated colors and high contrast. Next, there is Gentle Sepia, which will give the image a soft brown tone. Next, there is Dramatic Tone, which will emphasize subjects in the image by darkening the shadows and edges of the subject. Next, there is Keyline, which will give the image a posterized artistic effect. The last art filter is Watercolor, which will give the image the look of a watercolor painting with brightened colors and edges. As discussed earlier, you can customize the camera's picture modes. To do this, press the Menu button and select the Shooting Menu 1. Here, select Picture Mode and Custom. Press the right arrow button to select the picture mode you'd like to customize. Make your selection and press OK. Now, select Contrast and press the right arrow button to view the contrast settings. Make adjustments and press OK. Do the same for sharpness, saturation, and gradation. When you're finished making adjustments, simply press OK to save changes. The next menu item in the Shooting Menu 1 is Image Quality. Let's first take a look at the quality options for still images. Highlight Still Picture and press the right arrow button to review the options. The first option is RAW. When this option is selected, the camera will record one RAW file each time the shutter button is pressed. The next four options are the JPEG settings. The image size, or how many megapixels the camera will use to record the image, is indicated by the first letter, and the compression rate is indicated by the second letter. First, there is a large, fine JPEG. When this setting is selected, the camera will record JPEG images at the highest resolution with very little compression. The large normal setting records images at high resolution with moderate compression. The large JPEG settings are great for making high-quality prints of your images. The middle normal setting records JPEGs at a medium-sized resolution with moderate compression. And the small normal setting records images at low resolution with moderate compression. The small JPEG setting is good to use if you know that you'll only be using the images for posting online or email. The last four options are the RAW plus JPEG options. When any of these options are selected, the camera will record one RAW file as well as one JPEG file each time a picture is taken. First, there is the large fine JPEG plus RAW. Next, there is the large normal JPEG plus RAW, the middle normal JPEG plus RAW, and lastly, the small normal JPEG plus RAW. Now let's take a moment to discuss the camera's movie image quality settings. There are 6 different movie recording modes to choose from. The first two options are Full HD. With these modes, the camera will record Full HD movies at 1920 by 1080. The difference between fine and normal is the level of compression. The fine setting will have less compression and a little better image quality, and slightly larger file sizes than the normal setting. The next two options are HD Fine and HD Normal. The HD settings will record movies at 1280 by 720. And again, the difference is the level of compression. The Motion JPEG HD setting will record movies at 1280 by 720 with a lower frame rate and higher compression. The Motion JPEG SD setting will record movies at 640 by 480. The next menu item in the shooting menu 1 is Image Aspect, where you can choose the image aspect ratio. You can also adjust this setting while you're shooting. To do this, simply exit the menu system and press the OK button to bring up the live control. Here, select the image aspect option and use either the arrow pad or the front dial to make your selection. You can choose from 4:3, 16:9, 3:2, 1:1, and 3:4. If you're planning on making standard 4:6 prints, you'll want to select the 3:2 option. You can also change the image aspect ratio while you're shooting. Press and hold the Function 2 button while rotating the front or rear dial to select Image Aspect. Now, you can simply press the Function 2 button once and then rotate one of the dials to make your selection. The next menu item in the shooting menu 1 is Digital Teleconverter, which will allow you to digitally zoom in on subjects beyond the zooming capability of the lens. To use this feature, simply select On and resume shooting. The image will be enlarged by a factor of 2. Now, simply take the picture. When you're finished using Digital Teleconverter, you'll want to set it back to off. Note that Digital Teleconverter is not available in certain shooting modes. The next menu on the OMD EM10 is the Shooting Menu 2, where the camera's advanced shooting settings and options are located. The first menu item is the Drive mode, where you can choose how you'd like the camera to record images when the shutter button is pressed completely. This setting can also be accessed when you're shooting. Simply press the OK button to enter live control and scroll to the Drive mode setting. First, there is Single, which will allow you to take one picture each time the shutter button is pressed completely. Next, there is Sequential High Speed, which will allow you to take pictures at about 8 frames per second while the shutter button is pressed completely. Next, there is Sequential Low Speed, which will allow you to take pictures at about 3.5 frames per second when the shutter button is pressed completely. The next option is the 12-second self-timer, which will take one picture 12 seconds after the shutter button is pressed completely. Next, there is the 2-second self-timer option, which will take one picture 2 seconds after the shutter button is pressed completely. This is a good mode to use to reduce camera shake if you're using a tripod at very slow shutter speeds. The final option is the Self-Timer Custom, which will allow you to choose between 1 and 10 pictures to be taken 1 second after the shutter button is pressed completely. To choose the number of pictures you'd like, press the Info button and use the arrow pad or front or rear dials to make your selection. The next menu item in the Shooting Menu 2 is Image Stabilizer, where you can select the image stabilization options for both still images and movies. You can access the image stabilization options in the menu system as well as when you're shooting. To select the image stabilization option when you're shooting, press the OK button and select the image stabilization option. Note that if you'd like to manually input the focal length for any non-compliant lens, you can press the Info button and use the arrow pad or the front or rear dials to make your selection. The first image stabilization option for still images is Still Image Stabilizer Off, which will disable the image stabilization. The next option is Still Image Stabilizer 1, which will automatically apply stabilization to the image in all directions and is good for use when panning the camera to follow the moving subject. Next, there is Still Image Stabilizer 2, which will apply stabilization to the image only in the vertical direction. Still Image Stabilizer 2 is also a good mode to use when panning the camera. Next, there is Still Image Stabilizer 3, which will apply stabilization to the image only in the horizontal direction. The last option is Still Image Stabilizer Auto, which is also great for when you're panning the camera. The Still Image Stabilizer Auto will detect the camera's panning direction and apply appropriate image stabilization. To access the Movie Image Stabilization options, rotate the mode dial to Movie and press the OK button. Again, simply select the Image Stabilization option on the live control. The image stabilization options for movie shooting include Movie Image Stabilization Off, which will disable image stabilization in movie shooting, and Movie Image Stabilization On, which will automatically stabilize for movie shooting. The next menu item in the Shooting Menu 2 is Bracketing, which will allow you to set up the camera to vary settings over a series of shots. With the OMD M10, you can bracket exposure, white balance, flash settings, ISO, and art filters. Simply select On and press the right arrow to choose the parameter that you'd like to bracket. With the first option, Auto Exposure Bracketing, you can choose from 2, 3, 5, or 7 frames to be bracketed, with between 1/3 and 1 full step of variation between each shot. For white balance, you can choose to bracket the amber and blue tones, or you can choose the green and magenta tones with 3 frames and up to 6 steps of variation. For flash level and ISO, you can bracket 3 frames with 1/3 to 1 full step of variation. For art bracketing, you'll first need to select On and press the right arrow button. Here you can choose which art filters and picture modes you'd like to be bracketed. The next menu item in the Shooting Menu 2 is HDR, with a variety of options to help you create stunning HDR images. The first 2 HDR options, HDR1 and HDR2, will allow you to create an HDR photo automatically in camera. With these options, the camera will take 4 photos at very high speed and combine them to make the final HDR image. HDR1 will create images with high contrast, and HDR2 will create images with super high contrast. Be sure to hold the camera steady while all 4 images are taken. The other HDR options will take 3, 5, or 7 images at high speed when the shutter button is pressed. All of the images will have variation in exposure, which will make it easy for you to combine them to create an HDR image on the computer. The next menu item is Multiple Exposure. A multiple exposure image is created when the image sensor is exposed 2 or more times to different images. The final image has the additional image superimposed over the first. There are several options that can be set in the multiple exposure menu item. First, there is Frame. Use the arrow pad to select 2 frames. Next, there is Auto Gain. When enabled, Auto Gain will automatically adjust the exposure for each image to create a properly exposed final image for the multiple exposure. The last option, Overlay, will allow you to choose a RAW file as the base image from the memory card for the second image to be superimposed over. The next menu item is Time-Lapse Settings. Use the arrow pad to highlight On and press the right arrow to view the additional options. With the time-lapse feature, you can set the camera to automatically take pictures at preset time intervals, and you can use those images to create a single time-lapse movie. First, you'll need to set the number of images that you'd like the camera to take and press OK to confirm. You can choose to have between 1 and 999 images taken. Next, you'll need to set the time that you'd like the camera to wait before taking the first picture after the shutter button has been pressed. Once you've made your selection, press OK. The next option is Interval Time, which will allow you to choose how long you'd like the camera to wait between shots. Again, make your selection and press OK. The final option is Time-Lapse Movie. Here you can choose whether or not you'd like the camera to record only the still images or record the still images and create a time-lapse movie as well. The final menu item in the shooting menu 2 is Flash Remote Control Mode, where you can set up the camera to control the optional wireless Olympus strobes. The next menu item on the OMD M10 is the Playback menu, where the camera's playback and retouch options are located. The first item in the Playback menu is Slideshow, where you can set up the camera to display a slideshow of the images and movies on the memory card. This is a great feature to use when the camera is connected to an HD TV. Press OK to view the slideshow options. First, there is Start, which will simply begin playing the slideshow. Next, there is BGM, or background music, which will allow you to choose whether or not you'd like to have background music in the slideshow. The next option is Slide, which will allow you to choose whether you'd like the camera to include still images, movie files, or both in the slideshow. The next option is Slide Interval, where you can choose how long you'd like each image to be displayed. You can choose from options ranging between 2 and 10 seconds. The final option is Movie Interval, where you can choose whether you'd like just a short clip of each movie file to play, or if you'd like the full movie to play. After you've made your selections for your slideshow, simply select the Start option at the top of the screen. The next menu item in the Playback menu is Image Rotate. When enabled, Image Rotate will automatically rotate and display images that are taken with the portrait orientation. The next menu item is Edit. With the OMD M10, you can edit images in camera and save them as new images on the memory card. To use this feature, select Edit and select Image. Here, use the arrow pad to find the image that you'd like to edit and press OK. There are options for Raw Data Edit, JPEG Edit, and Audio Recording, which will allow you to add an audio recording up to 30 seconds to the current image. Let's first take a look at the JPEG Edit options. First, there is Shadow Adjustment, which is useful for brightening a backlit subject. Next, there is Red Eye Fix, which will reduce the appearance of red eyes in images where the flash was used. Next, there is Crop, where you can rotate the rear dial to adjust the size of the crop and use the arrow pad to position the crop. Press OK to confirm the crop and select Yes and press OK again. Next, there is Aspect, which will allow you to change the aspect ratio of the image. You can choose from 3:2, 16:9, 1:1, and 3:4. After you have made your selection, you can use the arrow pad to choose the area that will be trimmed. Again, press OK, select Yes, and press OK again to confirm. The black and white sepia options will allow you to create a black and white or sepia copy of your image and save it to the memory card. The next option is Saturation, where you can choose to increase or decrease the color saturation in the image. The next option is Resize, which will allow you to save a smaller version of your image to the memory card. The final edit option is E-Portrait, which will allow you to make skin-in photos of people appear smooth and translucent. Note that in order for the E-Portrait to work effectively, face detection must be able to detect a face in the image. There are also several options for editing raw image files in camera. Again, select Edit and select Image. Scroll to the raw image that you'd like to edit and press OK. Under Raw Edit, there are 5 different options. First, there is Current, which will save a JPEG copy of the image to the memory card using the currently selected camera settings. You'll want to adjust the camera settings before you choose this option. The next two options are Custom 1 and Custom 2. With each of these settings, the selections that you make can be saved to that option, so you can quickly and easily edit RAW files with those same selections. Press the right arrow button to access the settings that you can make adjustments to. You can select the JPEG image quality, the picture mode, the white balance, the exposure compensation, the highlight control, the shadow control, the aspect ratio, the noise filter, and the color space. After you have made your selections, you can press the Movie button to preview your changes. From here, you can make adjustments to the settings, and press the Movie button again to preview the final image. And when you're satisfied with your changes, press OK. Select Yes and press OK to save the JPEG copy to the memory card. After the image has been saved, the camera will prompt you with a reset dialog. If you select Reset, the adjustments you made to the settings will reset to defaults. If you select No, the settings you selected will be saved to the custom setting. The last option for RAW edit is Art Bracket, which will allow you to apply one or multiple art filters to the image and save the JPEG copies to the memory card. Press the right arrow button to view the art filter options and use the OK button to select or deselect each setting. A JPEG copy will be saved for each image that has been checked. When you're finished making selections, press the Menu button and press OK to save the copies to the memory card. Again, you'll be prompted with the dialog to reset the art bracket settings. Choosing Reset will set the art bracket options back to default, and choosing No will keep the settings that you just selected. The next menu item is Print Order, which will allow you to select the images that you'd like to print when the camera is connected to a compatible printer. The next option, Reset Protect, will allow you to cancel the image protection for all images on the memory card. The final menu item in the Playback menu is Connection to Smartphone, which will allow you to use a wirelessly enabled smartphone or tablet with the Olympus Image Share app installed to remotely control the camera, share photos between the camera and the smartphone, edit images, and add geotags. To use the Connection to Smartphone feature, select Connection to Smartphone in the Playback menu. Next, press OK on the Preparing Wi-Fi Connection screen. The camera will prompt you to install the Olympus Image Share app on your smartphone. If you have already done this, press OK. The camera will display a QR code to be scanned using the Olympus Image Share app on your smartphone. For iPhones, when you launch the app, the Easy Setup screen will appear and prompt you to scan the QR code. Tap Scan and frame the QR code in the box on the smartphone screen. After the code has been scanned, tap Install. Then, on the Install Profile screen, tap Install again. Your smartphone may prompt you with a warning. Tap Install Now and Done. Here, you can use the app to remotely control the camera, import photos from the camera's memory card to the smartphone, edit photos, and add geotags. Note that the Olympus Image Share app is available for iOS devices as well as Android devices. The next menu on the OMD EM10 is the Custom menu, where customization of many camera controls and settings are located. With the Custom menu, there are deep levels of customization for almost every camera function and feature. Note that with the Custom menu, there are several sub-menus, each indicated by a different color gear and letter icon. To view the menu items for a sub-menu, simply press the OK button. The first custom menu is Menu A, the AF/MF menu, where all of the camera's autofocus settings and customization are located. Before we begin discussing the camera's AF/MF menu, it's important to have a basic understanding of how the camera focuses. For all of the AF modes, when the shutter button is pressed and held halfway, the AF target that obtained focus will appear in green, and the AF confirmation mark will appear. If the camera focuses on a subject other than intended, you can select a different AF target simply by pressing an arrow button, using the arrow pad or front or rear dials to select a new AF target. When the entire AF target grid is green, the camera will automatically choose one AF target from the full set of targets for focus. Now let's take a look at the AF/MF custom menu. The first item in the AF/MF custom menu is AF mode, where you can choose the AF mode for still images and movies. You can also access and change these settings while you're shooting. Press OK to bring up the live control and navigate to the AF mode option. Here you can use the arrow pad or front dial to make your selection. The OMD M10 has 5 different AF modes to choose from. First, there is single AF, which is great for use with stationary subjects. In this mode, the focus is locked when the shutter button is pressed halfway. This would be a good mode to choose if you're photographing products or doing portrait work with an older child or adult. The next AF mode is continuous AF, which is the mode that you would want if you're photographing moving subjects. In this mode, the camera will focus continually while the shutter button is pressed halfway. This mode is great if you're photographing a sporting event, small children, or animals. The next focus mode is MF, or manual focus. When the camera is set to manual focus, you will need to focus using the focus ring on the lens. The next focus mode is single AF plus manual focus. When you're using this mode, press the shutter button halfway to focus as you would in single AF mode. After focus has been achieved, use the focus ring on the lens to fine-tune. This is a good mode to use when you're taking close-up pictures and you want to ensure sharp focus in detail areas. The last focus mode is continuous AF tracking. This is a great mode to use for capturing images of fast-moving subjects. Press and hold the shutter button halfway to begin autofocus. As the subject moves, the AF target will maintain focus on the subject. The next menu item is full-time AF. When enabled, the camera will continuously focus when the shutter button is not pressed halfway. Note that this option is not available for 4/3 system lenses. Next, there is AEL/AFL, which will allow you to customize the way that the auto exposure and autofocus lock function. Next, there is Reset Lens. When enabled, Reset Lens will automatically reset the focus of the lens to infinity each time the camera is powered off. Next, there is Bulb Time Focusing. When off is selected, the camera will not allow manual focus during live bulb, live time shooting. When on is selected, manual focus is allowed in these modes. Next, there is Focus Ring, which will allow you to choose the rotation direction of the focus ring. Next, there is MF Assist, which will allow you to automatically switch to zoom and/or peaking in manual focus mode when the focus ring is rotated. Next, there is AF Target Set Home. With this option, you can set the home position for the AF target. The top and default option is All Targets. The next option is Single Target. Press the right arrow button to choose the home position for Single Target and press OK to confirm. Next, there is Small Target. which will allow you to use a much smaller AF target and set the home position for the small target. The final option is Group Target. With this option, the camera will automatically select an AF target from a selected group of targets. You can set the home position for the group target and press OK to confirm. The next item in the AF/MF custom menu is AF Illuminator, which will allow you to enable or disable the AF Illuminator. The AF Illuminator is used in low light conditions to help the camera to achieve focus. The next item is Face Priority, where you can choose the AF Face Priority setting. You can also access this function while you're shooting. Press an arrow button and the AF target will display. Then press the Info button to activate the Face Priority option. You can use the arrow pad to choose an option. The first and default option is Face Priority On, which will simply focus on faces in the scene. Next, there is Face and Eye Priority On, which will focus on the eye that is closest to the camera. The next two options are Face and Eye Priority Right and Left Eye, which will focus on the right or left eye of the subject respectively. The final option is Face Priority Off. The final menu item in the AF/MF custom menu is AF Area Pointer, which will allow you to choose whether you'd like the target frame to appear during focus confirmation. The next custom menu is Menu B, Button, Dial, and begins with Button Function. This is where you can customize the function of many camera buttons, including Function 1, Function 2, Movie, Right Arrow, Down Arrow, Arrow Pad, and L function. The next option is Dial Function, which will allow you to change the functions that are assigned to the front and rear dials in the camera's P, A, S, and M shooting modes, as well as in the menu system and playback. The next option is Dial Direction, which will allow you to choose the directions that the dials are rotated when selecting the shutter speed and aperture, and Program Shift in the Program AE shooting mode. Next, there is Mode Dial Function, which will allow you to apply the My Sets access to mode dial positions when one or more My Sets are registered. The next custom menu is Menu C, Release. The first two items in this menu are Release Priority S, or Single AF, and Release Priority C, or Continuous AF. When enabled, the camera will be able to take a picture even if focus has not been achieved. The next two options are Sequential Low-Speed Frames per Second and Sequential High-Speed Frames per Second, where you can choose the maximum frames per second you'd like the camera to use in sequential low speed and sequential high speed modes. The next option, Sequential Image Stabilization Off, will allow you to choose whether or not you'd like image stabilization to be used when the camera is set to one of the sequential shooting modes. Next, there is Halfway Release with IS. When enabled, the image stabilization will begin when the shutter button is pressed halfway. Next, there is Lens IS Priority, which will allow you to give priority to the lens image stabilization feature when an IS lens is used. The last menu item in the Release custom menu is Release Lag Time, with options for short and normal. When short is selected, the time lag between the shutter button being pressed completely and the image being taken can be reduced. Note that the battery life will be depleted more rapidly when short is selected. The next custom menu is Menu D, Display, Sound PC. The first menu item is HDMI, which will allow you to make adjustments to the HDMI settings when you're connecting the camera to an HD TV. HDMI out will allow you to choose the digital video signal format, and HDMI control will allow you to enable the camera to be controlled with a compatible TV remote control. The next item is Video Out, where you can choose from NTSC or PAL. If you're in the United States, you'll want to select NTSC. Next, there is Shooting Control Settings, where you can customize the features that are displayed when using the iAuto, PASM, Art, and Scene modes. Next, there is Thumbnail and Info Settings. Here, you can choose the information that is displayed when the Info button is pressed in both Playback and Live View. You can also customize the thumbnail view in Playback. The next menu item is Displayed Grid, which will allow you to choose a framing grid to be displayed in the viewfinder and monitor to help with composition. Next, there is Picture Mode Settings, which will allow you to select which modes are accessible when selecting them in Live Control or in the Super Control panel. The next option is Histogram Settings, where you can customize the lower and upper bounds for the highlight and shadow display. Next, there is Mode Guide, where you can choose whether or not you'd like to have a guide displayed each time the mode dial is rotated. The next menu item is Live View Boost. When enabled, Live View Boost will give priority to making images clearly visible on the LCD monitor, and the effects of exposure compensation and other settings will not be visible. The next option is Frame Rate. When high is selected, the frame lag will be reduced, but the EVF image quality may drop. The next menu item is Art Live View mode, with two modes to choose from. When mode 1 is selected, the filter effect is always displayed, and when mode 2 is selected, the filter effects will not be visible while the shutter button is pressed halfway. Choose mode 2 for a smooth display. The flicker reduction menu item is useful when you're using Live View or Movie mode under fluorescent or mercury vapor lights. You'll want the setting to match the local AC power supply. Next, there is Live View Close-Up mode, which will allow you to choose how you'd like the zoom close-up feature to function in Live View. Next, there is Focus Peaking settings. When enabled, focus peaking will allow you to see the in-focus areas of the image enhanced. You can choose from white or black. Next, there is Backlit LCD, which will allow you to choose whether you'd like the camera's LCD monitor to dim after the camera has not been used for a selected time period to conserve battery power. The next menu item is Sleep, where you can choose how long you'd like the camera to wait before going into sleep mode when it's not in use. Next, there is Auto Power Off, where you can choose how long you'd like the camera to wait before automatically powering off when it's not in use. Next, there is Beep Sound, which will allow you to turn the beep sound that is heard when focus has been achieved on or off. Next, there is USB mode. With this option, you can choose the mode to connect the camera to a computer or printer. The final menu item in the Display Sound PC Custom menu is Multifunction Settings. With this option, you can choose which settings you'd like to be accessible when the Function 2 button is used in conjunction with the rear dial. The next custom menu is Menu E, Exposure, Metering, and ISO, where you can customize many of the camera's exposure, metering, and ISO settings. The first menu item is EV, or Exposure Value Step. You can choose to have 1/3, 1/2, or 1 full step. If you choose 1/3, you will have 3 times as many options for aperture and shutter speed settings as you would if you chose 1 full step. Next, there is noise reduction. If auto is selected, the camera will reduce noise at very slow shutter speeds. If on is selected, every image will have noise reduction. And if off is selected, noise reduction will be disabled. Next, there is noise filter, where you can choose the level of noise reduction for high ISO settings. Next, there is ISO, where you can simply choose the ISO setting. You can also access this setting while you're shooting. Simply press OK to access the live control or super control panel and select ISO. You can choose from auto, low, and ISOs ranging from 200 to 25,600. Next, there is ISO step, where you can choose whether you'd like the ISO options to be 1/3 or 1 full step. Next, there is ISO auto set. With this option, you can choose the ISO auto default setting, as well as the high limit ISO that you would like the camera to use when it's set to ISO auto. Next, there is ISO auto, which will allow you to choose which shooting modes the ISO auto setting is effective in. You can choose to have ISO auto effective in only the PAS shooting modes, or you can choose to have ISO auto effective in all shooting modes. Next, there is metering, where you can choose from one of 5 different metering modes. You can also access the metering modes while you're shooting by pressing the OK button, scrolling to the metering mode setting. Here you can choose from 5 different metering modes. The first metering mode is called Digital ESP Metering. This is an all-around metering mode suited for most situations, including portraits and even backlit subjects. The camera sets the exposure automatically to suit the scene. This is a good mode to use for most situations, but many times when the scene is very bright or very dark, you'll want to use a different metering mode. The center-weighted average metering mode is weighted at the center and then averaged for the entire scene. The next mode is spot metering. This is effective when the image has strong contrast between the subject and the background. There are also 2 unique spot metering options: spot metering highlight control and spot metering shadow control. Highlight control will ensure that bright subjects appear bright in high contrast lighting, and shadow control will ensure dark subjects appear dark in low contrast lighting. The next menu item in the exposure metering and ISO custom menu is AEL metering. With AEL metering, you can choose the metering method for AE lock. If you choose auto, the currently selected metering mode will be used. The next item is bulb time timer, which is where you can choose the maximum exposure for bulb and time photography. Next, there is bulb time monitor, which is where you can set the brightness of the monitor and viewfinder for bulb time shooting. The next 2 menu items are live bulb and live time, which will allow you to choose the display interval during bulb time shooting. Next, there is anti-shock. Anti-shock is a feature that will diminish the camera shake that is caused by vibrations prior to exposure. You can choose the delay between the shutter button being pressed and the picture being taken. The final menu item in the exposure metering ISO custom menu is composite settings, where you can choose the exposure time that you'd like to use when you're doing live composite photography, like fireworks or stars. The next custom menu is menu F, Flash, and it begins with Flash X Sync. With this option, you can choose the fastest shutter speed for use with the flash. You can choose from shutter speeds ranging from 1/60th of a second to 1/250th of a second. The next menu item is Slow Limit, which will allow you to choose the slowest shutter speed to be used when the flash is fired. You can choose from shutter speeds ranging from 30 full seconds to 1/250th of a second. The final item in the Flash custom menu is Flash Intensity Control. When enabled, the Flash Intensity Control will function in connection with the exposure compensation to adjust the overall brightness of an image when the flash is used. The next custom menu for the OMD EM10 is menu G, Image Quality, Color, and White Balance. The first menu item is Image Quality Set, where you can modify JPEG image quality settings to meet your shooting needs. You can customize 4 different JPEG image quality settings. The options on the left side for each setting indicate the pixel count, and the options on the right side for each setting indicate the image compression. After you've made your selections, press OK to confirm. The next menu item is Pixel Count, where you can choose the pixel count for the middle and small JPEG sizes. Next, there is Shading Compensation. When enabled, Shading Compensation will correct the peripheral illumination that is sometimes caused by certain lenses. The next menu item is White Balance, which will allow you to select a white balance setting as well as customize each white balance setting to your liking. You can also set the white balance while you're shooting. To do this, press the OK button to enter live control and navigate to the white balance option. Here you can choose one of 12 white balance settings. The first white balance setting is Auto White Balance. With this setting, your camera will attempt to automatically assess the color tone in a scene and make the necessary adjustments. The next white balance setting is Sunny. Sunny is a great setting for taking pictures in the sunlight. This setting is marked with a sun icon. Use the shadow setting when you're taking pictures in the shade. It reduces the bluish tones in a picture. This setting is marked by an icon of a house with shade. Use the cloudy setting when taking pictures on days that are overcast. This is marked with a cloud icon. The incandescent setting is used when taking pictures under common light bulbs. It reduces the reddish tones in a picture. This setting is marked with a light bulb icon. The fluorescent light setting can be used when shooting under standard fluorescent lighting. The underwater setting is great for underwater photography. The next setting is the flash setting. Use this setting when using the built-in or an external flash unit. The next four icons are the one-touch white balance options. Select one of these options when you want to use your own custom white balance settings specific to the lighting conditions you're shooting in. This is done by taking a picture of a white card or object and then selecting the image for the camera's electronics to reference. Setting a one-touch white balance on the OMD EM10 is easy. Simply select one of the one-touch white balance settings and press the Info button. Now, fill the frame with the white or gray object and press the shutter button completely. Select Yes and press OK. Now, images taken with the current lighting will have the specific one-touch white balance setting applied. The last white balance setting is Custom White Balance. With this setting, you can choose the specific color temperature of the light that you're shooting under. To change the color temperature, press the Info button and use the arrow pad or front or rear dials to make your selection. Within the white balance option in the custom menu, you can also fine-tune each of the white balance settings. Select a setting that you'd like to fine-tune and press the right arrow button. Here you can use the up and down arrow buttons to adjust the amber blue tones and the green magenta tones. After you've made your adjustments, you can press the Movie Record button to preview the white balance, and if you're satisfied, press OK to confirm the adjustments. The next menu item is All White Balance Compensation, which will allow you to have the camera use the same white balance compensation setting in all white balance settings except Custom White Balance. Choose All Reset to set the white balance compensation back to 0 for all white balance settings except Custom White Balance. Next, there is Auto White Balance Keep Warm Color. When enabled, Keep Warm Color will keep the warm lighting colors in the Auto White Balance setting. If you'd like to eliminate the warm color tones in Auto White Balance, select Off. The next menu item is Flash White Balance, which will allow you to choose how you'd like the camera to set the white balance when a flash is used. The final menu item in the Image Quality Color and White Balance custom menu is Color Space. You can choose from sRGB and Adobe RGB. Some photographers prefer the sRGB mode as it requires less processing later. Other photographers prefer the Adobe RGB mode as this mode has a wider range of colors, making it a preferred option for images that will be extensively processed on the computer. The next custom menu on the OMD EM10 is Menu H, Record and Erase. The first menu item is Quick Erase. When off is selected, the camera will prompt you when you press the erase button before it will erase the image. When on is selected, the image will be immediately erased with no warning dialog. The next menu item is RAW plus JPEG Erase, which will allow you to choose how the camera will erase RAW plus JPEG images. If you select JPEG, only the JPEG copy will be erased. If you select RAW, only the RAW copy will be erased. And if you select RAW plus JPEG, both the RAW and JPEG copies will be erased. Next, there is File Name. When Reset is selected, the file numbers will restart at 00001 each time a new card is inserted or when a card is formatted. Next, there is Edit File Name, which will allow you to choose how the image files are named. You can customize the first 3 or 4 digits depending on the color space that is selected. Next, there is Priority Set, which will allow you to choose whether you'd like yes or no to be the default setting on the camera's confirmation dialogues. Next, there is DPI Settings, which will allow you to choose the print resolution. The next menu item is Copyright Settings, where you can input your own copyright information to be recorded with each image's metadata. The next custom menu on the OMD EM10 is Menu I, Movie, which begins with Movie Record Mode. The Movie Record Mode option will allow you to take advantage of the effects that are available for still photography while you're shooting movies. You can also access these options while you're shooting. Make sure that the mode dial is set to Movie and press OK to enter the live control. Here, navigate to the Movie Record Mode setting and use the arrow pad to make your selection. You can choose from Program Auto, Aperture Priority, Shutter Priority, and Manual Shooting. The next Movie Custom menu item is Movie Sound Options, where you can choose whether or not to enable sound recording in movie mode. You can also access this setting while you're shooting. Again, make sure that the mode dial is set to Movie and then press the OK button to enter live control. Here, navigate to the Movie Sound Options icon and make your selection. The next Movie Custom menu item is Movie Effect. When enabled, Movie Effect will allow you to apply a variety of effects to your movies. To access the movie effects after the Movie Effect menu item has been set to On, simply press the shutter button to exit the menu system. Here, you will see 4 icons at the bottom of the screen. These icons are activated and deactivated via the touch screen. To use each of these features, you will want to begin movie recording and then tap the icon to apply the effect. This icon represents Art Fade, which will allow you to record movies with a selected picture effect. The fade effect will be applied to transitions between scenes. This icon represents Multi-Echo, which will allow you to apply an after-image effect. After images will appear behind moving subjects. This icon represents One-Shot Echo, which will allow you to apply an after image for only a short time after the button is pressed. And this icon will allow you to use the Movie Teleconverter. With the Movie Teleconverter, you can zoom in on an area of the image without using the lens zoom. The next menu item is Wind Noise Reduction, which will reduce the noise caused by wind when movie recording. The next menu item is Recording Volume, which will allow you to adjust the sound recording volume for built-in and external microphones. The final menu item in the custom movie menu is Movie Plus Photo Mode, with 2 options. If you choose Mode 1, the movie quality will be priority, so still photos that are taken during movie recording will be lower resolution. If you choose Mode 2, the still photo will have a higher quality, and the movie footage before and after the picture is taken will be recorded as separate files. The next custom menu on the OMD EM10 is menu J, built-in EVF. The first item in this menu is built-in EVF style, where you can choose from 3 different display styles for the built-in electronic viewfinder. The next menu item is info settings, where you can choose which information you'd like to be displayed in the viewfinder when the info button is pressed. Next, there is displayed grid, which will allow you to choose a viewfinder framing grid, which is useful when you're composing your images. You can choose from 5 different grid styles. The next menu item is EVF Auto Switch. When enabled, EVF Auto Switch will automatically switch the view from the monitor to the viewfinder when an eye is detected at the electronic viewfinder. Next, there is EVF Adjust, which will allow you to adjust the brightness and color for the electronic viewfinder. When EVF Auto Luminance is set to on, the brightness of the viewfinder will be automatically adjusted. You can also adjust the color for the viewfinder. The final built-in EVF custom menu item is Halfway Level, which will allow you to choose whether or not you'd like to have a digital level gauge displayed in the viewfinder. The final custom menu on the OMD EM10 is menu K, Shooting Utility. The first menu item is Pixel Mapping. With this item, the camera can detect and adjust the image pickup device and image processing functions. Next, there is Exposure Shift, which will allow you to adjust the optimal exposure for each of the camera's metering modes. Next, there is Battery Warning Level, which will allow you to choose at what battery level you would like the battery low warning to be displayed. Next, there is Level Adjust, which will allow you to calibrate the angle of the digital level gauge. You can also reset any adjustments you've made to the level. Next, there is touchscreen settings, where you can activate or deactivate the camera's touchscreen. Next, there is iFi. With this option, you can enable or disable image upload when you're using the iFi card. The final shooting utility custom menu is the electronic zoom speed. With this option, you can choose the zoom speed for power zoom lenses. The final menu on the OMD EM10 is the Setup menu, where the camera's basic functions are located. The first item in the Setup menu is Date and Time. Here you can use the arrow pad to select the year, month, day, and time in hours and minutes. You can also choose what order you'd like the date to be displayed in. Next, there is Language, where you can choose the language for the menus and displays. Next, there is Monitor Brightness Adjustment. With this option, you can adjust the overall brightness and color temperature for the LCD monitor. Note that the color temperature adjustment will affect the monitor only during playback. You can use the sides of the arrow pad to toggle between the monitor brightness and color temperature. And you can use the up and down arrow buttons to make your adjustments. Next, there is Record View. With this option, you can choose whether or not pictures will be displayed immediately after they're taken, as well as how long the pictures will be displayed. You can choose from options ranging from 1/3 of a second to 20 seconds. Next, there is Wi-Fi settings. Under Wi-Fi settings, there are 4 settings for setting up your camera to use the Wi-Fi feature. First, there is Wi-Fi Connect settings. Here you can choose Private, One Time, Select, or Off. Private is a good option to choose if you will only be connecting your camera to your smartphone or tablet. One Time is a good option to choose if you're connecting the camera to someone else's smartphone. Select is a good option to use if you would like to choose the Wi-Fi connection each time it's used. Next, there is Private Password, which will allow you to change the Wi-Fi connection password. Next, there is Reset Share Order, which will allow you to cancel image sharing. Last, there is Reset Wi-Fi Settings, which will allow you to reset the Wi-Fi setting to factory default. Note that the camera's Wi-Fi feature is discussed in detail in Chapter 5 of this guide. Next, there is Custom Menu Display. With this menu item, you can choose whether or not to have the custom menu displayed in the menu system. The camera's custom menu was discussed extensively in Chapter 6 of this guide. The final item in the setup menu is Firmware, which will display the firmware version that is currently installed on your camera. We hope you've enjoyed learning more about your Olympus OMD EM10. We know this new information will give you enough confidence and know-how to take your photography skills to new levels. Remember, you can refer back to any section of this guide at any time. Just select the topics that you want to review from the main menu. Watch for more QuickPro guides on using newly released cameras. Thanks for watching.